G'day and welcome back to another health and wellbeing webinar. Today's topic is one I'm very excited to learn about, procrastination. I must admit I am guilty in partaking in this one quite a fair bit. So I'm looking forward to what the wise Brendon Hede has to say about this one. Before we kick off, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians of the land on which you might be viewing. I also would like to pay my respect to elders past, present, and extend that respect to any Indigenous people who may be tuning in today. And again, as I said before we get too far into it, I will introduce you to Brendon, our wellbeing clinician here at Kinaway.
Thanks, Jason. And hi, everyone out there in the Kinaway family, all your members and staff. Look, Jason, procrastination is something that everyone goes through. Don't feel special. But it's something that we can do a little bit of research on and see if we can understand it a little better, and that's kind of what I've spent a little bit of time doing, and maybe just go through some bits and bobs for you members, your business owners. Whether you're working for yourself, procrastination can creep into your daily life, but for you other members that have staff and some younger people, you might want to show them the video so that they can get their head around what procrastination is and how it works. And look, it's a challenge. We've all faced it at one point or another. For as long as humans have been around, we've been struggling with delaying, avoiding, and procrastinating on issues that matter to us. During our more productive moments, when we temporarily figure out how to stop procrastinating, we feel satisfied and accomplished. So we're going to talk about how to make those rare moments of productivity more routine. And the purpose is to, break down the science a little bit behind why we procrastinate, and share some proven facts on how you can beat procrastination, and see if we can cover some useful strategies that can make it easier for you to take action. So that's basically it for what we're going to do today. Hope you enjoyed. It won't take long. But look, we're all guilty of procrastination. Let's see if we can pick it apart a little bit.
Brilliant, mate. So before we start picking it apart, do you mind explaining to me what is procrastination?
What is it? Yeah, look, human beings, we've been doing it for centuries, and the problem's so timeless. In fact, the ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates and Aristotle developed a word to describe this type of behavior: akrasia, A-K-R-A-S-I-A. And it's the state of acting against your better judgment. It is when you do one thing even though you know you should do something else. And loosely translated, you could say that akrasia is procrastination or a lack of self-control. For a more modern definition, procrastination is the act of delaying or postponing a task or a set of tasks. So whether you refer to it as procrastination or akrasia or something else, it is the force that prevents you from following through on what you set out to do.
Brilliant, mate. So why do we procrastinate?
Yeah, okay, so definitions are great and all, but why do we procrastinate? What is going on in the brain that causes us to avoid the things we know we should be doing? This is, probably to give you, I looked at the science behind it as well. Behavioral psychology research has revealed a phenomenon called time inconsistency, which helps explain why procrastination seems to pull us in despite our good intentions. Time inconsistency refers to the tendency of the human brain to value immediate rewards more highly than future rewards. The best way to understand this is by imagining that you have two selves. You've got your present self and you've got your future self. Now, when you set goals for yourself, like losing weight, writing a book, or learning a language, you're actually making plans for your future self. You are envisioning what you want your life to look like in the future. And the researchers have found that when you think about your future self, it is quite easy for your brain to see the value in taking actions with long-term benefits. The future self values long-term rewards. However, while the future self can set goals, only the present self can take action. And when the time comes to make a decision, you're no longer making a choice for your future self. Now you're in the present moment and your brain is thinking about the present self. And these researchers have discovered that the present self really likes instant gratification, not long-term payoff. So the present self and the future self are often at odds with one another. The future self wants to be trim and fit, but the present self wants a donut, right? Sure, everyone knows you should eat healthy today and avoid being overweight in 10 years, but consequences like an increased risk of diabetes or heart failure are years away. So similarly, many young people know that saving for retirement in their 20s and 30s is crucial, but the benefit of doing so is decades off. It is far easier for the present self to see the value in buying a new pair of shoes than in socking away $100 for the 70-year-old self, right? And if you're curious, there are some very good evolutionary reasons for why our brain values immediate rewards more highly than long-term rewards. But this is one reason why you might go to bed feeling motivated to make a change in your life. But when you wake up, you find yourself falling back into old patterns. Your brain values long-term benefits when they are in the future, but it values immediate gratification when it comes to the present moment, like when it comes to today. So you can't rely on long-term consequences and rewards to motivate the present self. Instead, you have to find a way to move future rewards and punishments into the present moment. You have to make the future consequences become present consequences, if you understand that. So this is exactly what happens during the moment when we finally move beyond procrastination and take action. For example, let's say you've got a report to write, you've known about it for weeks and continued to put it off day after day. You experience a little bit of nagging pain and anxiety thinking about this paper you have to write, but not enough to do anything about it. Then suddenly, the day before the deadline, the future consequences turn into present consequences. And you write that report hours before it is due. The pain of procrastinating finally escalated and you crossed what they call the action line. And there's something important to note there is as soon as you cross the action line, the pain begins to subside. In fact, being in the middle of procrastination is often more painful than being in the middle of doing the work. So the guilt, shame, and anxiety that you feel while procrastinating are usually worse than the effort and energy you have to put in while you're working. So the problem is not doing the work, it's starting the work. If we want to stop procrastinating, then we need to make it as easy as possible for the present self to get started and trust that motivation and momentum will come after we begin. Motivation often comes after starting, not before.
So how do we stop procrastinating right now?
Yeah, look, there's a variety of strategies that we can employ to stop procrastinating. So what I'll do is try and explain a couple of options and then maybe give some examples. So the option one is make the rewards of action, of taking action, more immediate. So make the rewards of taking action more immediate. If you can find a way to make the benefits of long-term choices more immediate, then it becomes easier to avoid procrastination. One of the best ways to bring future rewards into the present moment is with a strategy known as temptation bundling. So temptation bundling is a concept that came out of some behavioral economics research over in America, right? Simply put, the strategy suggests that you bundle a behavior that is good for you in the long run with a behavior that feels good in the short run. So a few examples, right? Let's say, I'll give you some examples. Something like only listen to audiobooks or podcasts you love while exercising. Only get a pedicure while processing overdue work emails. Only watch your favourite show while you're doing the ironing or household jobs. Only eat at your favourite restaurant when conducting your monthly meeting with a difficult colleague. So, so it sort of covers some specific exercises you can follow to create temptation bundling. But have a look at temptation bundling. You'll get a little bit more out of it if you've got time to Google it. It's sort of self-explanatory in that, but it might be difficult to follow as we're just verbalizing it today. But yeah, if you'd like to Google temptation bundling, another option is make the consequences of procrastination more immediate. So in the first example, we made the rewards more immediate. Now we make the consequences more immediate. So there are many ways to force you to pay the costs of procrastination sooner rather than later. For example, if you're exercising alone, skipping your workout next week won't impact your life much at all. Your health won't deteriorate immediately because you missed that one workout. The cost of procrastinating on exercise only becomes painful after weeks and months of this lazy behavior. So, however, if you commit to working out with a friend at 7 o'clock next Monday, then the cost of skipping your workout becomes more immediate. So miss this one workout and you'll look like a pain in the backside. So that's what they're saying by making the consequences more immediate, is make the consequences more serious. And another common strategy is something that's sticking in place if you don't. Oh, right. So yeah, another common strategy is to use a service like Stick to place a bet. So Stick, STICK, to place a bet. If you don't know, if you don't do what you say you'll do, the money goes to a charity. The idea there is to put some skin in the game. So another option is to design your future actions. So one of the favorite tools psychologists use to overcome procrastination is called a commitment device. Commitment devices can help you stop procrastinating by designing your future actions ahead of time. For example, right, you can curb your future eating habits by purchasing food in individual packages rather than in bulk size. You can stop wasting time on your phone by deleting games or social media, right? You can reduce the likelihood of mindless channel surfing by hiding your TV in a closet and only taking it out to watch your favorite sport or your favorite games. You can voluntarily ask to be added to a ban list at casinos, online gambling sites. I know these are drastic examples, but it can stop you from procrastinating. And another option is to make your task more achievable. So as we've already covered, the friction that causes procrastination is usually centered around starting a behavior. Once you begin, it's often less painful to keep working. This is one good reason to reduce the size of your habits, because if your habits are small and easy to start, then you'll be less likely to procrastinate. So, one of the more popular ways to make habits easier is the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule says that when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. The idea is to make it as easy as possible to get started and then trust that momentum will carry you further into the task after you begin. So once you start doing something, it's easier to continue doing it. And that 2-minute rule overcomes procrastination and laziness by making it so easy to start taking action that you can't say no. And another great way to make tasks more achievable is to break them down. We talked about goals in a couple of webinars earlier. That once you set yourself a goal, and you set yourself those little targets to get there. Once you get over each target, your motivation goes up because you're getting closer to the goal. Consider a remarkable, the remarkable productivity of a famous writer, and he published 47 novels, 18 works of non-fiction, 12 short stories, 2 plays, and an assortment of articles and letters. Now, how did he do it? Instead of measuring his progress based on the completion of chapters or books, he measured his progress in 15-minute increments. He set a goal of 250 words every 15 minutes, and he continued this pattern for 3 hours each day. This approach allowed him to enjoy feelings of satisfaction and accomplishment every 15 minutes while continuing to work on the large task of writing the book. So making your tasks more achievable is important for 2 reasons. One, small measures of progress help you maintain momentum over the long run, which means you're more likely to finish large tasks. The faster you complete a productive task, the more quickly your day develops an attitude of productivity and effectiveness. And that second point, the speed with which you complete your first task of the day, to be of particular importance of overcoming procrastination and maintaining a high productive output for the day. Look, and another tip is obviously to stay consistent. How can you kick the procrastination habit? One daily routine. One reason that it's so easy to slip back into procrastination time after time is because we don't have a clear system for deciding what is important and what we should work on first. This is another example of the system often being more important than the goal. One of the best productivity systems that's out there is also one of the most simple. And it's actually called the Ivy Lee method. Ivy Lee, IVYLEE. At the end of each day, write down 6 most important things you need to do tomorrow. Write them down, no more than 6. Now, I don't know when you write them down. Do you write them when you get home? Nah. Do you write them after dinner? Maybe. Before you go to bed? Maybe. Get out your diary or whatever, but prioritize those 6 things. So put them in order of importance. Even just put some numbers near them, 1 through to 6. Now, when you arrive at work tomorrow, concentrate only on the first task. Work until that first task is finished before moving on to the second task. And approach the rest of the list in the same fashion. At the end of the day, move any unfinished items to a new list for the 6 tasks tomorrow and repeat the process every working day. Here's what makes this so effective. It's simple enough to actually work. The primary critique of methods like this one is that they are too basic. They don't account for all the complexities and nuances of life. What happens if an emergency pops up? What happens if the latest technology, to our fullest advantage? In my experience, complexity is often a weakness because it makes it harder to get back on track. So emergencies happen, unexpected distractions will arise, but ignore them as much as possible. Deal with them when you must, and get back to your prioritized to-do list as soon as possible. Use simple rules to guide complex behavior. If it forces you to make tough decisions, I don't believe that there's anything magical about these 6 important tasks per day. It could be just as easy. It could be as easily be 5 tasks per day. But I think there's something magical about imposing limits upon yourself. I find that the single best thing to do when you have too many ideas or when you're overwhelmed by everything you need to get done is to prune your ideas and trim away everything that isn't absolutely necessary. Constraints can make you better. And this method, this Ivy Lee method, is similar to Warren Buffett's 25-5 rule, which requires you to focus on just 5 critical tasks and ignore everything else. Basically, if you commit to nothing, you'll be distracted by everything. This method also of writing down these 6 things, it removes the friction of starting. The biggest hurdles to finishing most tasks is starting them, right? Getting off the couch can be tough, but once you actually start running, it is much easier to finish your workout. This Ivy Lee's method forces you to decide on your first task the night before you go to work. This strategy has been really incredibly useful for a lot of people. You can waste 3 or 4 hours debating what you should do on any given day. But if you decide the night before, you can wake up and start getting into it, and it's simple, but it works. And in the beginning, getting started is just as important as succeeding at all. And the other benefit of the Ivy Lee is that, it just requires you to single task. Modern society loves multitasking, right? The myth of multitasking is that being busy is synonymous with being better. The exact opposite is true. Having fewer priorities leads to better work. Study world-class experts in nearly all fields: athletics, artists, scientists, teachers, CEOs, and you'll discover one characteristic runs through all of them: focus. The reason is simple. You can't be great at one task if you're constantly dividing your time 10 different ways. Mastery requires focus and consistency. Regardless what method you use, the bottom line is this: do the most important thing each day and let the momentum of the first task carry you into the next one. Another way to overcome the trap of chronic procrastination is to use visual cues to trigger your habits and measure your progress. A visual cue is something you can see, a visual reminder that prompts you to take action. And here's why they are important in beating procrastination. Visual cues remind you to start a behavior. We often lie to ourselves about our ability to remember to perform a new habit. I'm gonna start eating healthier for real this time. A few days later, however, the motivation fades and the busyness of life begins to take over again. And hoping you will simply remember to do a new habit is usually a recipe for failure. And this is why a visual stimulus can be so useful. It is much easier to stick with good habits when your environment nudges you in the right direction. So visual cues display your progress on a behavior, right? Everyone knows consistency is an essential component of success, but few people actually measure how consistent they are in real life. Having a visual cue like a calendar that tracks your progress avoids that pitfall because it is a built-in measuring system. One look at your calendar and you immediately have a measure of your progress. I can remember doing something years ago now when I was carrying way too much weight, and I don't know what happened, but I don't know what inspired me, but I wanted to do something about it, and I just made up a chart. I just got an A4 bit of paper and did some lines, Mondays, Tuesdays, and label it and all that sort of thing. But what I did was I stuck it on my bathroom mirror so that I saw it every night and every morning. And I think that's what they mean with visual cues. And they can be an addictive effect on motivation. As the visual evidence of your progress mounts, it is natural to become more motivated to continue the habit. The more visual progress you see, the more motivated you will become to finish the tasks. There's a variety of popular behavioral economic studies that refer to that. But seeing your previous progress is a great way to trigger your next productive action. So that's that. What I wanted to finish on today, Jason, was like an action plan. An action plan can be helpful for us to draw up a clear plan of action for what it is we need to do when the urge to procrastinate arises. So I've got 6 steps for you. Being aware and non-blaming, right? This one's really important. So this is step 1 out of 6 steps. Be aware and non-blaming. The first thing you got to do is stop and recognize your urge to procrastinate. When you do recognize that you are procrastinating or you are having the urge to procrastinate, Do so in a non-judgmental, non-blaming way. Don't beat yourself up for it, right? It's human nature. But instead, recognize it, label it. Say, you know what? I'm procrastinating. The procrastination has arrived, and that you're going to make a choice to do things differently. Step 2 is to adjust unhelpful rules and assumptions, right? If you can recognize the unhelpful rule or assumption of yours that is being activated by your task or goal, you can make attempts to adjust it. You can do this by challenging the rule or assumption, questioning where it came from. How is it unreasonable or unrealistic or unfair or unhelpful, and identifying its negative consequence. Then you can think of more helpful rule or assumption and what you would need to do to put it into practice and into that situation. Number 3 is to practice tolerating discomfort. Out of your comfort zone. So if you can recognize the discomfort that is arising within you about doing the task or goal, you can practice tolerating it mindfully by just being aware and observing or watching the discomfort without judgment, making space for it. Then in that way, letting it go when it's ready. You can imagine riding the wave of your discomfort or delaying procrastination to give yourself time to practice sitting with the discomfort. Dismiss procrastination excuses and encourage, right? So look for the excuses you're making to justify your procrastination. Notice your old unhelpful conclusions, such as not needing to do the task now because of some circumstance. Dispute if this conclusion really is true by asking, what is the evidence or reasons? Am I really going to be better off? Is it really true? I can't get started. What will the consequences be? Also, is there a way to test if your conclusion is true rather than assuming it is? And finally, settle on a conclusion that is more helpful to you, something more along the line that can make some small start now. Drop any self-criticism and instead talk to yourself as if you were motivating and encouraging a friend. 5th step, 2 to go, guys. We're nearly finished. Carry out practical strategies. So decide on a practical strategy most relevant to the task or goal at hand and apply these practical strategies. Excuse me. Remember, to gain clarity as to exactly what needs to be done, write a list of tasks and goals, then prioritize them. Then grade each one, and then accurately estimate how much time each step or each task or goal would take. There are numerous ways you can approach any given step of a task, such as worst first, using momentum, just 5 minutes, set time limits, prime time, prime place, remember then do, reminders, visualize, focus, and plan rewards. To know when you have the time to attempt a step of a task, you can use a schedule or an unschedule. And finally, reflect and revise. So now step back and reflect on how you're doing. Examine how things are going. Appreciate what is working well and the positive consequences of doing rather than procrastinating. Also recognize what areas may need improvement. If something does need to be revised, revisit these 5 steps and try again. Please know that of your action plan, it is steps 4 and 5 that are most important, which is to dismiss procrastination excuses and encourage, and 5 was carry out some practical strategies. And they're the most important to focus on in order to see some change in your procrastination habits. And now at the end of the day, the most important thing is to keep going. Expect that changing your procrastination habit will take time, practice, persistence, and patience. Expect that you will have good days and bad. Expect you'll have days you feel like a doer and days you feel like you've slipped back into procrastinationville. which I've lived there for a while myself. So it's human. We all do it, and the old saying is 2 steps forward, 1 step back is very true. If you expect setbacks when you sign up for the journey of changing your procrastination, then when you face a bump in the road, you will be less likely to blame yourself and give up because you've been expecting that to happen. And as such, you will be better able to use the 6 steps of the action plan to help you get over that bump and keep moving forward, full steam ahead.
Mate, brilliant. My head is absolutely spinning. There's so many.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Heaps and heaps of content and information. But
Yeah.
for anyone watching, if you want any more, as Brendon alluded to throughout this, if you want any more information, jump on Uncle Google and have a look for yourself.
And the other thing too, Jason, if anyone wants some more information, because I've researched this and I've got some stuff in front of me that I've been reading. But if anyone wants any more of that, just contact myself as well. As you guys know, it's Brendon. I'm your small business wellbeing clinician. My number is 1-800-Kinaway. If there's anything to do with this webinar or anything else to do with how you're traveling, a lot of us go through some anxiety and stresses in life. And if you, don't do it alone, rely on some support. Initially, if you've got some close loved ones and trusted friends, please reach out to them. But if you feel like you need to talk to someone completely neutral, that is free of charge and absolutely confidential and private, 1-800-Kinaway. My name is Brendon. I'm here Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, if you feel like having a chat. And also, as I say, if any of these webinars that you've been and had a look at and you have some questions, just reach out, because I've got all the information on file and I can flick you anything you want to have a read of and have another look at if you like. Or, anything like that, please reach out, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you very much again, Brendon. Heaps of content, really, really good information there. We will be on next week again for another health and wellbeing webinar. I look forward to catching up with you then, mate, and learning more.
Right, mate.
See you later, guys.
Okay, see ya. Bye.